Welcome to the latest episode of the Dolman Law Group podcast. I'm here with Stan GIPE.
Thank you for having me today in the middle of this COVID-19 shutdown.
As always, yeah, this is unprecedented times. It's scary.
Well, and it's finally, and I heard my wife talking about this, the first time that I'm the one in the house complaining about not having a haircut.
Yeah, really. Yeah,
not all of us have the luxury of getting their haircut during this, and honestly, I feel shaggy, so I apologize if we look anything.
That's why I purposely go as short as possible.
I know it's kind of nice, but barbers, everyone is shut down during this, pandemic we've got going, and it's creating a lot of legal issues for people.
Yeah, let's get into that. So it's business interruption coverage, business interruption insurance, business loss, and business income loss insurance. What is it? Take me through this. Let's talk about the issues today, what we need to spot, and how difficult insurance policies are to read just in general.
Well, okay. Well, there's a whole handful of things that we just threw out there, but I guess the first thing you want to address is business interruption coverage. Okay, it's one of these coverages that if you run a small business, you probably talked to your insurance agent about it, and like every other coverage, until you actually needed it, you didn't look to see what was there.
Sure.
And that's the way we buy insurance. You get this thick booklet of stuff when you sign the check and when you sign the policy. No one ever reads it until it comes time to make the claim.
Correct.
And once you open it up, sometimes these things are full of surprises. Because when you're purchasing business interruption coverage and you're talking to your agent or broker about it, this is coverage to cover you if your business has to shut down and you're not able to make money. And it sounds good enough in a broader sense like that when you just get the overview. What we're finding, though, now is as people go to make their claims, as people are going to actually submit these claims to the insurance company, a lot of people are finding that despite the fact that they've got business interruption coverage, the insurance company's wanting to do something other than pay them for it.
Yeah, I mean, they're uniformly denying these claims. We're seeing it across the board at my firm. I know you're seeing the same thing. We're working together on a number of claims that our two law firms have combined resources. And, off the bat, the first provision they're denying is that there's actually been no damage, no alteration, no wind damage, no water damage, no fire damage to the property itself. You can't show the damage because it's an invisible virus. And that's what makes this a little bit more difficult than your average case. They're going to deny us off the bat, and it's up to us to prove that there's actually been damage to the property.
Well, you got a couple different things there. One of the issues you're talking about absolutely is the need to prove physical damage
Correct.
to the property. Luckily, there's a little case law out there and some precedent out there. It's not quite on point with viruses, but
I mean, this is unprecedented.
Yeah,
sure.
but you've got some issues where vapors, ammonia odors, natural gas lines, things like that have broken underneath the building. Those vapors, those chemicals from that have permeated through the foundation of the building, created an odor. That's actually triggered physical damage coverage. So, while we think of physical damage as that, that hole you see in the wall, that stuff you can observe, these sorts of things have triggered physical damage coverage in the past.
Because they render the property unusable or not usable for its intended purposes.
Yes, exactly.
And the most clear example is the restaurants.
Yeah, the restaurants. Just say you've got a natural gas line that opens up under a restaurant. Well, you can't serve food. You're out of luck, okay? What we're finding, though, in some of these cases, you've now got this virus issue. And when you kind of fast forward, you think simple enough, I was shut down due to a virus, right? If you're a restaurant.
Yes, you were shut down based on a government order, municipal and state.
Okay, so well, you got a couple different issues. You got some people saying, let's say you contacted your insurance company, sent in a claim and said, look, I'm shut down due to a virus.
Yeah.
Okay, well, when your insurance company responds, they're likely to say one of two things. One, you've either got a virus exclusion on your policy.
Which we're seeing across the board. Yep.
Or if there's not a virus exclusion, prove to me that there was a virus in your place.
Which makes it inherently difficult, being that we're only testing 150,000 individuals per day in this country, 4.5 million a month. It would take you about 6 years, if you do the calculation, to test everybody in this country. So we're not testing facilities, personal properties, personal effects. That's what makes it so difficult. I mean, some of these policies you're seeing damage to or loss of use, and therefore your inability to use the property for its intended purposes. That's an argument there, but without that, they're going to stick on to the damage argument. How do you show us there's been damage to the property?
And that's it. That's where the rub gets on this stuff, because I will tell you, like you say, it's an unprecedented issue, and there's enough money at stake here. This is I was talking to you earlier when we were discussing some of this. I said it was like a hurricane that hit every state.
Yes.
Insurance companies are set up to handle these catastrophes when they happen on a smaller scale. But in this case, this is like a hurricane that hit every state, and the amount of money they're talking about is so far beyond what they've been used to. They're willing to, go to almost any extent to keep from paying these claims, because
of course,
it's not just one person, okay? Because if you're just one person making a claim, an insurance company can look at it and say, all right, well, I'm going to pay this guy. It's cheaper than fighting it, or he's probably right. In this situation, when you deal with one person, there's 100,000 behind them just like it.
Oh, right across the board. And they all have very similar issues.
And the insurance companies are looking at such exposure that what we're seeing is just a uniform denial. And it's not a uniform reason for the denial. It's a uniform denial. We'll find the best reason based on this particular claim. Of all the claims we've heard of, and of all the people that have contacted us up to this point, I have yet to find anyone I've personally spoken to that's been able to get a check from their insurance company for business interruption coverage.
Not one yet.
Not a single one.
Because they don't want to set the precedent.
Yeah, well, and I've spoken to people who we've not signed up that clearly have coverage under their policies. No exclusions, it's written in there, and they're still not being paid.
Right off across the board, they're going to deny because of lack of damage to their property. And that gets into several other arguments we're going to get into the weeds of, which is civil authority coverage. I mean, right off the bat, we're looking at two different orders that occurred statewide. One is the March 20th order from Governor DeSantis, which filed down from federal direction. Obviously, the federal government cannot tell the states what to do, but every state uniformly has approached it the same way. We shut down the dining capabilities at restaurants. Nightclubs have been shut down. Adult entertainment clubs have been shut down. Bars have been shut down. Restaurants are limited to takeout and delivery. So many of these restaurants are just mitigating their damages, stalling out the inevitable, which is they're eventually going to go out of business. The only places they're doing well right now are supermarkets and pizza parlors, because people are home and you got a captive audience for pizza parlors. But these restaurants are struggling right now, and this is their time of need. And I get it. If you have a pandemic exclusion, that's one thing, but a viral exclusion itself, the insurance company's backup argument is, we never intended for this to occur. This is on a large scale. It's like a hurricane hitting every state, as you just said. We don't have the money to pay this out. So the question is, will the federal government step up, mandate the insurance carriers to pay this out, and in turn subsidize the insurance carriers so they do not go bankrupt?
Well, it's like this. When you look at it, this is a catastrophic loss, okay? And there's no way to avoid the loss. There is going to be a loss. It's a matter of who absorbs it. Is it falling on the small businessman? Is it going to fall on the insurance companies? Or is it going to fall on the taxpayers as a whole? Historically speaking, when we've had issues like this pop up in the past, the government tends to step in and be sort of a backdoor safety net, much like you saw in the financial crisis when we had it in the late 2000s, the housing crisis. The government stepped in to bail out banks, okay, because these institutions are so large they can't fail. In this situation, I got a feeling you're going to find that the only institution that is capable of withstanding the loss is the government, and the government's going to have to stop in and put some sort of safety net measures in place, because, okay, if all these small businesses don't get some compensation, let them go under. They never come back, and that's going to be devastating for the economy.
That's happening every day now.
Absolutely, yeah. And even companies that we call large businesses, and I think you hit on it a little bit with different areas of coverage under the policy. I think you mentioned a pandemic exclusion, a virus exclusion, physical damage limitations. There's a number of different issues that are starting to pop up here, and I who I really feel for is the businessman that's out there really, doesn't want to contact an attorney. He's trying to handle this thing on his own and trying to navigate through what's happening, because these denials that come back from insurance company, whether they're valid or not, they sound valid. If you're not equipped to kind of dissect what's really being said, and I've had this happen a lot, people have come to me and go, I just don't have coverage. I've already looked into this. I'm like, well,
or they were told by their broker or an insurance adjuster. There's a whole campaign of disinformation that's being disseminated by the insurance carrier and the insurance industry that there is no coverage for these type of claims.
Well, and that's what I
In
told
order
him.
to dissuade the policyholders from filing these claims.
And that's exactly what I said. I said, are you sure there's no coverage, or has someone just told you there's no coverage? Because there can be two different things. I'm sitting there saying, like, look, are you going to trust the person that owes you the money to tell you how much they owe you? You're going to take their word for it?
Very good analogy.
Yeah, it's no, you need to keep track of it. Just because they say they don't owe you money doesn't mean they're right. Especially when it's financial, it financially benefits them to say that.
Fair point.
And if you've dealt with insurance companies in the past,
As I have.
as all of us have, okay, the whole legal industry, what we're doing, I mean, everyone sees attorneys, everyone knows we're out there. The whole reason we exist, the whole reason we make money, our whole industry, is based on the premise that insurance companies aren't doing the right thing in the first place.
Of course, if insurance companies did the right things, I wouldn't have a job.
No, if they came out and made a fair offer to people in the first place, they wouldn't need us.
No.
And they would do that, but the insurance companies know, they make their money by minimizing these claims, and then they also factor in the fact that, in the back end, we're going to have to pay the people that fight. We're going to have to pay some people that challenge our decisions, but we're going to more than make up for it by getting away with not paying the ones that don't.
Of course, actuaries, mathematicians figure out these rates for the insurance carriers.
Absolutely. It's just like with what we do, okay? Yep. What insurance companies offer to settle a claim isn't a fair reflection of, all right, it's the risks of what we would pay going to trial. If you've got a 50-50 shot of winning $100,000 or getting zero, that legitimately should be worth $50,000. Hey, half the time you get 100, half the time you get zero. That shot should be worth $50,000. What you're seeing in actuality is insurance companies are offering $5,000 on that. And maybe as you get closer to trial, they'll offer $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. And if they see you're the guy that's going to take them to trial, they may offer that $45,000. Get right up to close to fair value on it.
All fair points.
But
if you're not, what happens every day.
And if you're not the guy who's going to take them to trial, or you are someone who doesn't necessarily have all the moving parts here, that $5,000 offer, which comes after a denial, may seem pretty tempting. And it may seem, all right, finally they're agreeing with me. But you don't want to be the guy that took $5,000 to settle a $50,000 claim.
Agreed with you. So what are the steps that consumers need to look at right now?
First thing, okay, the very first thing is get your insurance policy. If you're well, when I say consumers, if you're someone who owns a business, if you're someone who feels like you've sustained a loss due to a COVID-19 shutdown, grab your insurance policy. That's the very first thing. Get a copy. And the insurance policy isn't the bill. It's not just the one page that mentions your coverages.
Many pages.
It's this little thicker book that you're probably going to have to look for or ask your insurance agent to mail to you.
Which is very convoluted.
Yes.
Very difficult for even lawyers to understand.
Always. And
there's so many exclusions, so many parts where you'll look at a part and it'll tell you to relate back to the other part. And it's just like, it's just a menagerie of moving parts inside these insurance policies.
And the way they're written is they've got this policy, and then they attach all these amendments to it that change the policy. So you read policy coverage A, and then you get to Amendment B, which changes coverage A. And, it really almost takes a chart. You got to sit down, put all these different amendments, pieces of the policy and stuff together, and read them in conjunction to see what coverages you've actually got.
Sure.
And it's not as simple as it seems. But what you want to see is if you've got business interruption coverage, okay, if you've got that coverage on your policy, you need to explore your claim. You're going to get denied.
100%.
You're going to get denied, but it doesn't mean you don't have coverage or you won't get paid eventually. If you've got that coverage on your policy, you need to pull it out and you need to start looking at making your claim because, a lot of times it's the early bird that gets the worm in this kind of stuff.
100%.
And I think that has been proven out recently in the pay work protection program. Okay, those people who were most equipped to submit who were ready, who had already gone through the steps of gathering the information, got my payroll, got all this stuff, I'm ready to submit the claim when they open the door, those people got in.
Yep.
The people that were waiting and go, okay, now the door's open, I'm going to start, those people are still waiting for the pay work protection program
and that's
checks
the problem
to
with
come
any
through.
kind of government program. Oftentimes they lack oversight. This one lacked oversight from the beginning because it was so quick to come out that the banks were afraid of lending money because there was no protection if they wrote a bad loan. What was the government going to do for the banks? So banks were a little bit reticent. Then it turned out that the banks also, many of the big monolithic banks, such as Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they tend to pay out their more favorable clients, one of their biggest clients first. They took care of those individuals, and many of the small business owners were just left high and dry.
There's lawsuits on that going around now
course,
too. But
sure.
I can tell you,
My point, the way I was going to make is, if you're waiting for the government to act, okay, you're not taking care, you're not hiring an attorney, don't hold your breath. Who knows how this is going to turn out? We don't know. We don't know if there's going to be favorable treatment of certain entities. It's all up in the air.
Well, and then that's exactly it. Because when the clients ask, what are you going to do for me? Look, this is a little bit of a moving target. I can't tell you how it's all going to play out. I can't tell you where we end up at the end of the day. But what I can tell my clients is, look, my job right now, I'm keeping you at the front of the line. So when this does happen, you're there to benefit. We're not going to be at the back of the line. We're going to be on the forefront of this, and if anyone's getting paid, if anyone's getting recoveries here, I want to make sure your claim's positioned so that when they say jump, we already did it.
It's my opinion, I think the restaurant industry is going to get saved, if you will, if that's a word you want to use, or we're going to find a resolution for the restaurant industry first. I think those are the cases that are going to come up first on the docket. These are the more, I always call them, not necessarily easier cases, but more clear-cut. They're clear-cut and dry. I mean, the restaurants were shut down effective March 20th. There's no more dining capabilities. All they have is takeout and delivery, so either these restaurants are mitigating their damages or altogether they're at a loss right now completely. Their damages are readily and ascertainable, and they're continuing to accrue. Many of them are going to go out of business, and even, the bigger problem is restaurants contribute $1 trillion to our gross domestic product. They account for over 20% of our workforce. Many of these individuals don't have other vocational skills. Many individuals don't have lack education who are in the hospitality industry. How are you going to retrain these individuals? Does it cost less for the government to issue a bailout, compel the insurance companies to pay these out and in turn subsidize the insurance carriers, or is it, I would contend it's going to be a lot more expensive to put them on social programs and ancillary social programs. Besides unemployment, we're looking at a number of other social programs eventually these individuals might need to be on, and then also retrain the entire workforce.
You're absolutely right.
We're looking at 30 million Americans right now that are out of work.
Well, and then here's the other thing too that we kind of need to look at with respect to this. Like, let's say you're talking about a movie theater. Movie theaters have been shut down, but we as Americans, you have the ability when things come back, you may alter, okay, and decide I need less movies. Okay, I don't want to go to the movies.
Sure.
Okay, well, we don't have that option with food. Okay, no matter what happens, we're all going to need to eat. Now, we may change where we eat.
Sure.
But this industry needs to come back because it's not as though we're going to stop eating as much. Correct. And you're right. And when the government looks at this, it's going to make more sense to keep all these people in the industry, retrain them, etc. Mm-hmm. And right when it comes down to the issues, okay, the issues of the claim, you hit on it. We don't have to argue about whether they could have operated. We don't have to argue about whether there was a choice to shut down. It wasn't their choice, okay? They're not there. They're not able to sell. The government said no.
Yes.
And some of these, let's say you try to bring a claim for an attorney. Okay, well, obviously we've got losses as attorneys. This has impacted our business, but we're considered essential.
And we're still working, yeah. And same thing, I mean, I handle right now we both do, a number of service providers. Whether it's an air conditioning company,
ballet
companies. I'm just trying to think off the top. There's a number of different businesses and entities that we represent that don't have a physical location per se, where there's ingress and egress of customers that are coming into their location. So they're out servicing others. So it's a little bit more difficult to establish the actual loss. So we're depending on arguing based on the government order, arguing based on civil authority, the adjacent property was shut down, or based on dependent coverage that where there was a supply line, supply chain, down the supply chain, maybe they needed certain equipment that can't come to them because those businesses were shut down, or maybe they service other businesses that, based on their contracts, that are out of business right now, have been compelled to shut down. That's a little bit more difficult and more of a leap, if you will, than to just, the understanding that a restaurant's been shut down, very clear, cut, and dry. Now, the only argument is that they sustain a loss of their property, and if it says, if it's only damage to the property, it's one thing. But I think if the argument is there that it's the actual loss of the use of property, well, you have that. It's no different than being condemned by the government. They've been shut down. They cannot use their property for its intended purposes.
You're correct, and that's it. You get a little bit of this type of law in takings, in governmental takings with some zoning changes and stuff like that, where you see a little bit of different stuff, kind of for the same body of law there. Yep. But you're absolutely right. This is going to be a scenario where restaurants have the most clear-cut loss, okay?
Correct.
And probably because of the way they operate, margins, etc., the most clear-cut need for funding to get back open.
Yes, and they also have the strongest lobbyists.
They got the strongest lobbyists, but also, if you'll notice, what's been making the news? Okay, it's big restaurants that are getting the money. Okay, Ruth's Chris.
Oh, the payroll protection plan. Sure.
Yeah, okay. Ruth's Chris, and they supposedly are giving their $20 million back.
Yeah, they got
Shake
$10 million
Shack.
for themselves and $10 million, I think, for Potbellies, right?
I think it was two subsidiaries managed to get it.
Okay.
Okay, and then we've got them sending this money back. But what you notice, okay, well, most restaurant owners, they weren't in the business. They weren't there. They weren't they're shut down. So they weren't sitting there with their accountants ready to jump as soon as this program opened.
Very true.
And they missed out on the money. And if they're missing out on the money,
Well, that was also the banks giving preferable treatment to their most favorable clients.
Absolutely.
You have a lot more money invested in the bank. Banks are making a lot more money off you. They're going to save your company before they save the other company that only has 3 employees.
But what I'm saying is, if you're missing out on the pay work protection program and you're a restaurant and you're trying to open the doors back up, if you don't have insurance coverage that's going to cover you for business loss, it's going to cover you for this interruption, I don't know how you're going to do it.
I'd even make the argument that the payroll protection plan is just a drop in the bucket for many of these restaurants, that they've lost so much money based on spoilage, based on having to get rid of bad meat, bad product, vendors that they can no longer pay for. I mean, it's just payroll. Payroll is just a small. It's a small, again, drop in the ocean as compared to what they have to cover on a monthly basis. Even the ones that do delivery and takeout right now, it might cost them $700-800 a day to keep the restaurant afloat. But they're only making $200-300 a day off of Grubhub, Uber Eats, and whatever other opportunities they have to, whatever forums they're using for delivery and takeout.
Correct, and you're hitting on a lot of it. But if you're a restaurant now, you're basically at ground zero. You are restarting. Okay, it is all that spoiled food has to be rebought now, and you're not sitting there with the tailing in cash flow from the food you sold. So, these people got some startup costs when they're getting back to the business, and if they don't have something like a pay work protection program check, some kind of insurance company check, how do they make up for the lost time, the lost money? How do they get out there, buy product? Because I'm going to tell you, the food's not cheap, okay?
No.
The stuff goes bad, and it's not cheap. How do they make up and get that product back in there when they haven't been making money? They've had to pay people along the way. Most of these restaurants, just because you're out of business doesn't mean the landlord doesn't need to get paid.
Of course.
People are behind.
You only
the
hope
eight
they're
ball.
able to abate the mortgage, and it's just a terrible time. And let's not kid ourselves. Even when the restaurants get back into business, they get the go-ahead, the green light from the government, you have the problem of social distancing, and I don't think these restaurants are going to be operating at capacity or anywhere near that for a long time.
They're not going to be operating at capacity, I think, for 2 reasons. One, social distancing.
Yep.
Capacity rules. And number 2, let's talk about disposable income.
No one has it.
A lot of the people that were going out, eating, enjoying themselves are, most frequently, okay? Everyone goes out, okay? Everyone goes out to dinner. But those that go out most frequently are those without family. If you're sitting there a single person, you go out to eat, you do a lot of that. A lot of those people are service industry. They're younger individuals working in the service industry doing this type of thing, and that's the group that's been most impacted by this.
Yes.
So I think what you're going to find is that the base for these restaurants also is going to take a little while for their money to come back. So even though they want to be going out, they don't have the money to do it till it catches up.
So what do we say to the individual, the business owner who has a virus exclusion? I mean, I know my arguments. We've discussed this earlier today, but what's the general advice we're going to give those individuals who say to us, well, I've been told I don't have a claim. I know I have business interruption coverage, but my broker and the adjuster have already been denied, which, by the way, if you've been denied, we're still going to do a new notice because we want to put the requisite language in there to trigger a lawsuit. But the question is, you've been denied or you've been told by numerous people you don't have a claim because you have virus pandemic exclusion. What is the argument around it? Is there an argument?
Okay, yes. Yeah, there's a number of arguments around it, and I'm just going to say this. It's rare that I tell people just in mass or blanket to call an attorney. I'm going to tell you can make your claim if you want by yourself. Feel free. Go ahead. Submit it to your insurance company.
Anyway.
When it gets denied, this is one of those.
The attorneys are going to get denied.
Yeah, that's what I say.
It's about litigating the case.
It's not if. It's when it gets denied, you need to call an attorney. This is one of those where you really need to get an attorney involved. There's probably 6 different issues that go with virus and pandemic exclusions because each one's written differently in different policies. So the language you've got from one carrier is not the same as the other carrier. They may apply slightly differently. What we got to do, though, is if you have the loss, we need to establish it and, like I say, keep you at the front of the line. Have you be one of the ones that's presented your claim, have it teed up, have it ready to go with the insurance company so that when something happens, when we get to a point where a court says, judge says, a government entity says these need to be paid, you're in there getting paid, and you've got someone advocating for you who knows the ropes and knows their way through the system.
Couldn't say it better, but still, what do we do about the viral exclusion?
It depends on what it says. We got to fight it. Most of these viral exclusions, we're fighting.
I mean, most of them say it's a direct loss. It's based on a direct loss, so it doesn't account for the situation where we're shutting down for the safety of the community. We're shutting down to prevent viral transmission. It's actually the actual virus itself is what has shut you down. There's proof to me there is a virus.
Well,
we know there's a virus out there. Okay, I'm not one of those guys. There's definitely COVID-19. It's all throughout the community. Modeling studies show this is probably spread much further through the community than we even knew because of lack of testing. But the question is, you can't test these properties. The whole purpose of first-party property insurance is to give the insurance company an opportunity to remediate the property, and that can't be done in this situation. It's not being done.
Well, and that's kind of
capabilities.
Sorry to interrupt, but we end up with a situation of first impression here. It's one of these, we haven't done this before, and they weren't anticipating this. So, yeah, the question is shutting down for fear of virus trigger your virus and or pandemic exclusion?
My argument is, and I don't want to be the first lawyer to bring that case forward because, especially in this jurisdiction, I think the best cases are going to come out of South Florida in terms of Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County tend to be a bit more liberal. But the viral exclusion is going to be a war that's fought on the fact that whether it's direct or indirect. So will you shut down directly because of the virus, or will you shut down because of the fear of transmission of the virus, which if the insurance carrier is meant to cover that, my argument is they would have put that in the language. The omission of that is enough, I think, to trigger coverage.
And now you see where, well, and
that's clever lawyering. I know it's going to go back and forth, and it's going to be a hard fight, and we know this.
And that's why, this may sound a little mushy when we're talking about it, but that's exactly it. We're on the forefront of creating law. Yeah. Okay, this is one of those things that hadn't been done yet. The next time we have a pandemic virus sweep through the nation, we'll know how it plays out. We'll know how these exclusions play.
My opinion is there'll never be business interruption coverage again because the reinsurers will never cover these type of losses again. You can't, hopefully there'll never be a pandemic again, but you can't cover these type of losses on the magnitude that we're seeing. It's like you said, it's like a hurricane occurring in every state at the same exact time. Every city is being struck.
The most recent thing, and not to equate this to it, I would say we saw it was popping up was, some of the losses that centered around 9/11.
Yeah, sure.
Which is
why they have a terrorism exclusion now.
Yeah, which is kind of what happened where people are going, boy, I don't know what to do about this. I really don't know how to handle it because they hadn't addressed it before. Now, you can read those policies and you know exactly what would happen if something like that happened. But that's why I say right now, we're on the front edge of this law, and, no one can tell you definitively which way this goes. This isn't going to be clear.
No, it's not.
I
see some policies are so tightly written, and they're going to be construed in favor of the insurance company or the insurers. We're seeing a couple where it says caused directly or indirectly by the virus or pandemic, which, then you get around the indirect language. You get around the language that's been omitted. I don't think there's many avenues in those cases, but again, we don't know. We don't know how it's going to play out. We also do not know if legislation is going to help, the restaurant industry, which, by the way, is going to flow out to the small business owners, because once that you create law, it's going to flow out from there. But again, I would not wait for the government to do anything. We don't. No, they're a disaster to begin with. I mean, you look at the payroll protection plan. And look how many companies were left high and dry. And if you're not in early, you weren't in at all. You literally might get denied on these claims based on the fact that depending upon how much of a pool the government puts together, depending on how big of a safety net they put, many of these companies are still going to be left high and dry.
Well, and if you're asking, hey, I need a claim because of this. Don't expect the insurance company to go, oh, well, he really meant this. This is where the coverage is. They're just going to go back and say, no, you're wrong, sorry. And it could be just that you've actually got coverage but didn't even make the demand or say the magic words to trigger the policy.
Which brings up another point. In many of the policies that we read, we see what's called ambiguous, amorphous, not very plainly obvious language. And we both know that, Florida law and most jurisdictions follow the same exact principle. That language that's ambiguous in insurance policy is always construed against the drafter. So when, if you put an argument in front of a judge about whether insurance exists or does not exist, they're going to err on the side that coverage does exist if the language is very amorphous, very vague on its face, and it's not plainly obvious what they meant by it.
Yeah, and that's the standard, okay? In Florida, on any contract, it does not just insurance.
Yeah, sure.
Ambiguity is construed in favor of the non-drafting party, and that's fair, because you wouldn't want to make it so that the person who's writing the policy is encouraged to make it ambiguous to favor them.
Of course.
And trick people. So, hey, if it's ambiguous, it favors the person who did not write it, who didn't include the ambiguous policy. That's even more so. There's a heightened standard when it comes to insurance policies in the state of Florida. So when you're reading it, if there's an argument that there's coverage, it doesn't even have to be the best argument. There's probably coverage. And if you're reading through an insurance policy and you're not quite sure what it means, that's ambiguity. Ambiguity is anything that can be construed to mean more than one thing, can be read two different ways.
Correct. And keep in mind one more thing. If you look at a lot of the civil authority orders, the ones that came down, I could point right out to Hillsborough County, Dade and Broward and Palm Beach County all have language. In New York City, for example, New York City in their order discusses that COVID-19, coronavirus, whatever you want to call it, does cause damage to physical property. It actually says that in the order. And that's a language that is going to be shoved down the insurance company's throats because they're going to say it does not cause damage, which, by the way, is a lie. It's a fallacy. We all know that for the period that's there, it does damage the property. It sticks to surfaces for an extended period of time. It renders the property unusable. So when they say that, it's not causing actual damage to the property, that in itself is a fallacy.
Yeah, and and this is what and I hate to say, but as attorneys, technical is what we get. We are technical, and a lot of times, no matter how microscopic the virus is, it's a physical thing.
Sure.
A vapor is a physical thing. A virus,
a microorganism is certainly a physical
thing.
So
these are
you can't see it, but it's there.
Right. You don't have to be able to see it, and that's exactly it. So I'm going to tell you this, and I can't tell you how this is all going to work out, but I can promise you, not all. Look, everyone's not going to get paid at the end of the day in these. I'm sure there's going to be some people whose coverages and their exclusions are valid, but I can tell you there's a lot of people whose claims are getting denied that are entitled to money from their insurance companies.
We see it every day.
And with this, there are insurance companies that are just denying people right and left out of fear. It's not based on this particular policy. It's based on opening the floodgates.
Yeah, it's a uniform decision to deny everything, delay, defend. We always see the 3 Ds: deny, delay, defend. But also, it's the campaign of disinformation they're engaging in with the adjusters. But basically, the frontline brokers, everybody knows to call their broker and find out, do I have coverage? How do I submit my claim? And the broker's saying, you don't have a claim. There is no claim to be made. You're going to get denied anyway because you don't have coverage. You have an exclusion that applies to this. And let a competent lawyer, let someone who's actually competent and experienced in first-party insurance coverage, which is another issue I want to bring up, is everybody's jumped into this. So there's a lot of lawyers who are now filing these claims. It is a hotbed area of litigation. We have a lot of lawyers who don't have experience doing first-party insurance coverage or insurance coverage to begin with, but they see an avenue to make some money. They looked at prior issues like BP or Hurricane. What was the last one that passed through here?
Oh,
Irma.
There were Katrina claims.
There was tons of Katrina claims, especially throughout Louisiana and the Panhandle of Florida. But this is different, and it's a bit more convoluted. And we don't know if the government is going to bail these individuals out, kind of similar to those. This might be a little bit different. You need a lawyer who has the savvy and experience handling first-party insurance claims, which most lawyers don't.
No, it's a little bit different beast, but you're right. It's more of a contract insurance coverage type of issue. So even, your standard toward auto accident guys, which we do a lot of
course.
It's a different beast altogether here.
Yes, sir.
This is more about, like in auto accidents and stuff, it's more about establishing negligence and establishing the damages. Here, there's going to be a little argument on damages because it's not concrete how much each person has lost. The fight's going to be on establishing the coverage, talk about the meaning of the policy, the way things are supposed to be interpreted, the wrongfulness of the denials. And understand, okay, if anyone's listening out there and is saying, I don't want to get an attorney because I can't afford him on an hourly basis, the best thing about this, if we make a recovery for right, the insurance company has to write the check.
No one's paying us from the offset. We only get paid if we resolve the case to the satisfaction of our client.
Right. We're not. Here's the thing. No one's paying us out of money they were getting without us.
Yes.
Okay. So if an insurance company's paying your claim, we're not getting a piece of it.
Yeah, which is not happening.
If an insurance company's denying your claim, okay, where you're getting zero, okay, the only way we're going to get money is if we get you money too.
Yeah, the whole point of contingency, the contingency fee is to level the playing field between those who have and those who don't. And that's not saying that my clients don't have. It's just you don't have the resources or the financial capability of a huge insurance company. The resources they have is just it's incomparable. It's insane. Okay, they can bury you. We're used to this. We have a lot of resources, a big credit line to fight these insurance carriers. It's going to be a war. But what I'd say to the client who's like, why would I hire an attorney when I could do this myself? Well, good luck. Good luck reading and interpreting an insurance policy. They're going to know that you're not a lawyer. They're going to take advantage of you with very crafty arguments that you're not going to be able to fight your way out of. The scariest person in this world is one who does not know what they don't know.
You know, I would equate this to, let's say if I was to say something everyone's had experience with, if you're a homeowner, I would equate this to this project you thought you were going to tackle yourself. And it wasn't until you actually got some drywall off the wall, looked at the stuff back there to go, oh, man, I messed this up. I need to call in the electrician. I need to call in the real guy. And hopefully you get that person in before you've done so much damage yourself that it can't be fixed.
Yeah, in a case like this, you got one bite at the apple. I want to make sure I do it correctly. And something of something is always better than zero of nothing. In this case, it's not going to be something of something. If we get the policy, we've gotten the policy, and hopefully the insurance company is going to pay us. There's actually a mechanism that we get paid outside the policy, which is based on 627.428. You want to explain what that is?
Well, that's basically a provision out there to make litigation fair, because insurance companies have limitless resources, essentially. And if I, as a consumer, had to pay an attorney to fight the language of my insurance company, it would be cost prohibitive. Mm-hmm. So there's a fee-shifting provision out there saying, look, as a consumer, you can retain an attorney to fight the provisions of your insurance company. And if you're right and if you win, the insurance company's got to pay that attorney's hourly fee.
Yes.
And the theory behind that is, well, if you're right, they should have been paying the insurance in the first place, and they shouldn't have denied it.
100%.
So that provision's out there, but I can tell you, okay, and this happens a lot, where attorneys, when clients walk out and they'll write big checks a lot of times to attorney, but let me tell you, that's a fantastic problem to have. If you're writing your attorney a big check, or the big check's coming out of the settlement, it's just a piece of what you got. Okay, if I'm making a lot, it's because we've done a good job for you. If we're making a big check, that's because you're getting a bigger check.
100%, couldn't have said it better. So I want to let everyone out there know that if you have a policy, we want to do a review of it. We're doing free reviews of insurance policies. I'll get your response back within 48 hours, and we'll let you know what our thoughts are in terms of the avenues of recovery, what the options are, and how we can pursue a claim on your behalf. But you have nothing to lose. Get us your insurance policy. I want to review it. I want to get an opportunity to read it maybe 2-3 times and see what exclusions there are. Obviously, we need to, there has to be business income loss. There has to be a business interruption coverage. Absent that, there is no claim. But let's get into the weeds. Let's see what is there. Let's see what the avenues of recovery are. Is there civil authority coverage? Is there dependent coverage? What is the exclusion? Is there virus pandemic exclusion? Or is it just limited to bacteria and fungi? I want to look at these policies and really understand what you've paid for and what the arguments that can be made in favor and construed in favor of you having coverage.
Absolutely. And then let me tell you what, if there's someone out there that thinks they're going to do it by themselves, more than happy to let them try, let them do it. I'm even happy to answer questions they may have. I'm not able to give them legal advice until they sign up, but I think what's going to happen is, like everyone else who's been down that path, as soon as you start dipping your toe into it, you realize you need a legal professional in there helping you. And let us do it. Let us get in there. It's not going to cost you a penny to let us tell you what we think about your claim. And then if you don't like what we say, you don't have to sign a contract. You never have to join us. But you can't lose by having us give you some advice, look at your policy, and at least get our thoughts on what's going on.
Yeah, so if you have a question, if you want us to review your policy, you can send it over to me. I'm Matt Dolman. You can send it to Matt, M-A-T-T, at Dolman, D-O-L-M-A-N, L-A-W, dolmanlaw.com. You can call me anytime my cell phone, which is 941-961-8841, or my office, 727-451-6900. Stan, how would they get a hold of you?
You know, you can get
we're working together, by the way.
Yeah,
in
we're
these
working
claims.
together. So if you want it, maybe easiest just to forward it to Matt at this point in time. But, my law firm is Papa and GIPE. We're working with Matt on a lot of these cases. You can email them to me directly if you want. It's sgipe@papaandgipe.com. That's SGIPE at PAPAANDGIPE.com. But wherever you send it, we'll both end up looking at it, and you'll be in competent hands.
Yeah, we've combined our resources. It's a very big undertaking. It's going to be very costly, and we've put the resources of two pretty decent sized law firms together here, and we're handling claims throughout the state of Florida. So wherever you are in Florida, it doesn't matter if you're in the southern Florida, down Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County, if you're out in Lee, Collier County, Polk, Hernando, Pinellas, Sarasota, Manatee, Hillsborough. It doesn't matter.
Well,
We're
I'm
going to look at the case.
impressed.
What, I was able to name them so quick?
Yeah, that you're able to come up with that many counties in Florida off the top of your
I
head.
can keep going. You want me to keep going? Should I name Duval and just go?
Yeah, I would not have been.
Scambia. I mean, we can go on, but yeah, wherever you are, doesn't matter. Even if you're out in Orange County, you're out in the Orlando area, we're here to help you. So anywhere statewide, we're going to handle the cases, whether it ends up in state court, federal court, in northern or southern district. We have lawyers that are capable of handling these claims, and we're working as a team. This is the biggest issue. It's at the forefront of our firm right now. We have a number of lawyers dedicated to this that are working on these policies as we speak.
And I will tell you, because traffic's down, traffic accidents are down, now's a fantastic time to contact us. We get the time to devote to doing this.
Sure do. Well, I want to thank you again for tuning into the latest episode of the Dolman Law Group podcast. I'm Matt Dolman. That was Stan Gipe. Always lovely to have Stan here, and we're happy to serve you. So again, if you need my help, contact me right away. I want to jump on these claims as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.